Okay. Delivering on our sacred obligation to America's veterans and their families. President Biden and the First Lady believed that there is no obligation more sacred than taking care of our nation's military service members, veterans, and their families, caregivers, and survivors. President Biden signed into law more than 30 bipartisan bills addressing critical issues facing veterans, including the PACT Act, which is the most significant expansion of benefits and services for toxic exposed veterans in more than 30 years. Expansion of benefits. In 2022, President Biden signed the landmark PACT Act into law. This historic legislation is delivering timely benefits and services to veterans across all generations who have been impacted by toxic exposures while serving our country. For survivors of veterans who died from a toxic-related illness, the PACT Act provided a pathway to benefits including monthly stipends, access to home loans, as well as education benefits. Surviving veteran spouses with children can qualify for over $2,000 per month in funding toward college tuition. Since enactment, VA has received over 2.2 million PACT Act-related claims and has granted toxic exposure benefits to more than 1.2 million veterans and over 12,600 survivors. Additionally, nearly 360,000 veterans eligible under the PACT Act have newly enrolled in VA health care, and more than 5.9 million veterans had been screened for toxic exposure. Under the PACT Act, VA is making care and benefits available to veterans battling over 300 medical conditions, including more than 100 cancers. In addition, VA added more cancers to the list of those considered service-connected for veterans exposed to burn pits, paving the way for veterans with bladder cancer, ureter cancer, acute and chronic leukemias, and multiple myeloma to receive VA disability benefits. Delivering more benefits than ever before. In 2024 alone, the VA delivered $187 billion in earned benefits to 6.7 million veterans and survivors, and processed a record 2.51 million disability claims. VA delivered more than 131 million health care appointments, over 6 million dental procedures, and provided services and assistance to more than 88,095 family caregivers. Ensuring access to affordable, stable housing. Under President Biden's leadership, the administration also reduced veteran homelessness by expanding access to permanent supportive housing, legal support, and job training for veterans and their families. In 2023, VA helped more than 145,000 veterans and their families retain their homes or otherwise avoid foreclosure, and permanently housed more than 46,000 veterans. The Biden-Harris administration awarded more than $1 billion in grant funding to help homeless veterans. The administration also launched first-of-its-kind funding for legal services for veterans experiencing or at risk of homelessness. In 2024, new data was released showing that veteran homelessness had reached its lowest point on record, marking a 7.5% reduction in veteran homelessness in the previous year alone, and 55.6% reduction in homelessness since 2010. Reducing veteran suicide. In 2021, President Biden released a comprehensive strategy for reducing military and veteran suicide. Alongside the administration's expansion of peer mental health counseling programs for veterans, VA expanded its veteran justice outreach specialist workforce by over 20% and launched a new $10 million program to support states and territories in their efforts to prevent veteran suicide. As of October 2024, VA has provided no-cost life-saving care to more than 82,000 veterans at risk of suicide since the program began. VA awarded over $150 million in grants for community-based organizations to deliver or coordinate suicide prevention programs and services for veterans and their family members. In September, VA announced more than $4.3 million in cooperative agreements for states and territories to help fund and provide technical assistance to better inform veteran suicide prevention. Supporting military and veteran families, caregivers, and survivors. As a military family, President Biden and the First Lady recognize the commitment and resilience of military-connected families as essential to the recruitment, retention, and readiness of our armed forces. First Lady Jill Biden, through her Joining Forces initiative, worked to eliminate barriers to employment and increase economic opportunity for military-connected families. In June 2023, the President, alongside Dr. Biden, signed an executive order on advancing economic security for military and veteran spouses, military caregivers, and survivors. This executive order is the most comprehensive set of administrative actions any president has directed to support military spouses, and it included nearly 20 new actions aimed at enhancing career stability, expanding employment resources, and improving transition assistance support for military-connected spouses. The Biden-Harris administration also expanded critical programs that crack down on predatory actors that scam our veterans and military families, as well as those that address food insecurity, access to quality, affordable child care, job security for spouses, and mental health support. Additionally, the administration increased support for military-connected children by eliminating barriers for military-connected children as they transfer schools and implementing universal pre-K across Department of Defense education activity. Ending cancer as we know it. The President and First Lady reignited the cancer moonshot to reduce the cancer death rate in the United States by at least half, preventing more than 4 million cancer deaths by 2047, and improving the experience of people who are touched by cancer. The President established a cancer cabinet to mobilize action in advancing these goals. In the time since, the Cancer Moonshot has announced more than 120 new programs, policies, and resources, and more than 225 private companies, nonprofit organizations, patient groups, and academic institutions have stepped up with new actions in support of these goals. Accelerating cancer research and novel breakthroughs. President Biden and Congress worked together to launch ARPA-H, the Advanced Research Projects Agency for Health, with an investment to date of $4 billion to improve health outcomes by driving breakthroughs to prevent, detect, and treat cancer, Alzheimer's, diabetes, and other diseases. ARPA-H has already committed more than $500 million in cutting-edge programs aimed at ending cancer as we know it. To date, President Biden and Vice President Harris secured a bipartisan increase of $4 billion for the National Cancer Institute as compared to the previous 4 years, and leveraged research across the Departments of Defense, Veterans Affairs, Energy, and others to make progress against cancer that will save and extend millions of American lives. Lowering costs and delivering patient navigation support. Starting this year, 2024, I think, millions of seniors on Medicare saved up to tens of thousands a year with a $2,000 out-of-pocket cap on prescription drugs, especially those receiving cancer drugs, which are among the most expensive drugs for Medicare beneficiaries. Additionally, the Biden Cancer Moonshot announced key steps to deliver support to people with a cancer diagnosis through expanded patient navigation services. Under the President and First Lady's leadership, the administration created the first ever CMS codes for cancer navigation, providing reimbursement for direct personal support to patients and families facing a cancer diagnosis. The administration announced that Medicare would begin paying for patient navigation services starting January 1, 2024, and also announced new commitments from 7 leading insurance companies, which cover more than 150 million Americans, to reimburse for navigation services. In addition, the Biden Cancer Moonshot announced 40 comprehensive cancer centers and community oncology practices nationwide who committed to using the new navigation codes to provide patient navigation services to people facing cancer. Finally, under the First Lady's leadership, the administration expanded access to high-cost drugs and cancer treatment in tribal communities by enabling Indian health services and tribal facilities to receive separate Medicare payment for high-cost therapies, including cancer drugs, providing a pathway for cancer care services to be provided on tribal lands. Tackling the drivers of cancer and cancer deaths. President Biden focused on tackling the drivers of cancer in America, including by making the largest investment in clean water in American history, thanks to the bipartisan infrastructure law. The president committed to ensuring every community has access to clean drinking water and took steps to protect more than 100 million Americans from PFAS exposure by setting the first ever drinking water standard for PFAS and dedicating more than $20 billion to improve America's drinking water. President Biden delivered funding to every single state and territory in the country to expand access to clean drinking water, replace lead pipes, improve wastewater and sanitation infrastructure, and remove PFAS contamination in water. Through the bipartisan infrastructure law, the Environmental Protection Agency dedicated more than $1 billion for cleanup projects at 50 toxic Superfund sites across the country, decreasing exposure for impacted communities. And after more than 3 decades of inadequate protections against chemicals, President Biden announced an historic ban on ongoing uses of asbestos in the first rule finalized under the nation's updated chemical safety law. That rule was followed by several other actions to protect the health of workers in local communities, including children, from known cancer-causing chemicals in the air, water, or workplace. Expanding access to early cancer detection. Nearly 10 million cancer screenings in the United States were missed during the earliest days of the pandemic, risking later stage detection of cancer, worse outcomes, and deepening inequities. The President and First Lady made improving access and affordability of cancer screenings a priority, investing in new early detection tools, greatly expanding access, especially to medically underserved communities, and removing cost barriers by improving insurance coverage of certain screenings. Screening numbers rebounded to pre-pandemic levels. Lowering tobacco use, particularly among children. President Biden proposed an historic rule to establish a maximum nicotine level in cigarettes and other tobacco products. If the proposed rule is finalized, the U.S. adult smoking rate will drop to below 2%. 48 million youth and young adults would be dissuaded from becoming established users of cigarettes, and about 1.8 million tobacco-related deaths would be averted by 2060. Today, tobacco use among middle and high school students is at its lowest level in 25 years, including low levels of e-cigarette use. The administration finalized age requirements for buying tobacco products, increasing them from 18 to 21. Took significant enforcement action to remove illegal e-cigarettes from the market, and funded robust education efforts to prevent thousands of youth from starting to use tobacco products. Keeping Americans safe. President Biden took bold action to reduce crime and make America's communities safer. He funded effective, accountable policing, invested in crime prevention, and kept illegal guns off of streets and firearms out of dangerous hands. The results are clear. Violent crime went to a near 50-year low, and homicides fell dramatically to nearly a 50-year low. In 2023, the murder rate saw its sharpest decrease ever recorded. Okay. The next section will be investing in safer communities. Next video.